new Texas bill could block gender-affirming care for all trans patients of all ages. Transgender Texans of all ages could have their access to transition-related medical treatment severely limited or effectively ended under a bill the Texan Senate preliminary approved Tuesday. Senate Bill 1029 would make physicians and health insurers financially liable for their patients' lifetime medical, mental health, and pharmaceutical costs resulting from complications of gender-affirming medical care, even if the providers lack the fault or criminal intent. The bill exempts such treatments for kids with medically verifiable genetic sex disorders. According to health groups, the bill would make it highly unlikely for healthcare providers offering these treatments to be able to get medical liability coverage, leaving them personally on the hook for potential medical, legal, and other costs. These financial risks could deter physicians from providing puberty blockers, hormone therapies, and gender-affirming surgeries to trans people of all ages in the state. The Senate voted 18-12 Tuesday to give the bill initial approval. It now waits another vote before it can move to the House. The Senate has also already approved Senate Bill 14, a priority bill that would ban transgender kids from receiving transition-related care, like puberty blockers and hormone therapies. A House committee has also advanced the legislation, and the majority of House members have signed on to support such a ban. Major medical groups approve of transition-related care and say it lessens higher rates of depression and suicide for trans youth.
Well,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, it's interesting to me. Don't you imagine that there's some GOP radical closet, and they all get into this closet, and then they talk among themselves, how can we be as horrible as possible? Well, let's define words of in relation to affirming care, and that every action that any medical professional ever does related to affirming care, we're going to say if you do something wrong, you're responsible. We're not going to define what wrong is. We're just saying if you do something wrong, you are responsible for it. And to ensure that we destroy you, if you do something wrong, you're responsible for the rest of that person's life. You get into this closet of this radical GOP, you have to give them at least the nod that they are diabolical and insidious in terms of how they create the laws. It's just like what we watch here in Florida. It's going to be intentionally vague, it's going to be intentionally broad, and we're going to destroy your intent to do anything without quantifying it, so therefore you won't do anything.
Well, I mean, these are the results of model legislation passed through or suggested by conservative organizations like Heritage Foundation. They all work in the same principle. Instead of the government saying that we ban things.
I think the Heritage Foundation was the dark, evil closet that I was talking about.
They all defer government power in favor of using civil litigation as an action. Think about it. All these laws are designed for someone to sue, some irritated parent sue over, how dare a teacher, say gay. And here they have someone who's going to be
on your desk in school of your wife.
Exactly.
That made me feel uncomfortable.
This is out of the Republicans' playbook. I hate to say it, but we've already read this chapter. Tighten the screws, like you said, on everyone. Back a few years ago, they were said that if you were an abortion doctor, you had to have admitting privileges at a nearby hospital. No other small clinic, surgical clinic has to have that, but they put it on the doctors because hospitals don't want to have abortion providers on their masthead, and they'll be picketed. So the idea was to pressure them and to pressure hospitals. So this is not new. This is unfortunately, this is a proven tactic out of their playbook.
And interesting, the only thing that overcomes it is federal judges and ultimately the Supreme Court. That's where issues like this historically over the last 50 years have been decided. Radical on either side. Let's say there's liberal radical in a state. or a conservative radical in a state. It's the federal court system and the federal courts, ultimately to the Supreme Court, that has moderated this. But that's why elections are so important, because we have been through a number of years where they denied Supreme Court justices under Obama.
Yep.
Nope, we're not even going to hear it. To getting Donald Trump elected and having 3 Supreme Court nominations, and tilt the balance of the court in terms of the reasonableness that will either affirm or not overturn legislation like this. So we're getting what we deserve if we don't vote, right? And that's where we're
Vote.
at. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.